The courtroom was frozen in shock. Every eye turned to Gene Deal, Diddy's longtime head of security, as he pointed straight at his former boss and uttered the words that shifted the entire trial. "I witnessed it all, and I've got the proof." In that instant, the facade crumbled. Diddy's confident mask fell away. His complexion turned ghostly pale. His lawyers leaned in, whispering with urgency. Across the aisle, prosecutors exchanged subtle nods. This was the moment they had anticipated. Nobody expected Diddy's most loyal bodyguard to become the prosecution's most damning witness. But as Gene Deal stepped up to testify, tall, stone-faced, and resolute, the tension in the room thickened. This was a man once tasked with keeping the world out. Now he was here to expose everything he'd once been paid to conceal. The crowd gasped. Even the judge looked momentarily stunned. No preamble, no press release, just Deal, calmly recounting the atrocities he claimed to have witnessed while working for one of the most powerful figures in music. Until that moment, Diddy had projected composure, grinning occasionally, chatting with his legal team, even appearing slightly amused. But now something had changed. Maybe it was the sight of a former confidant stepping up to testify. Maybe it was the knowledge that someone who'd been in the room for every secret was about to speak out. Whatever it was clear. Diddy was no longer untouchable. Gene Deal began his testimony slowly, his voice steady, and what he said shook the courtroom to its core. His account of private gatherings, disturbing conduct, and deliberate cover-ups wasn't hearsay. It wasn't tabloid gossip. It was a first-hand narrative from someone who had lived it and logged it. The day began routinely. Quiet murmurs, reporters typing, attorneys reviewing notes. But when Gene Deal's name was announced, everything shifted. At first, some thought it might be a bluff, until he walked in, eyes forward, completely unfazed. The judge raised an eyebrow. Diddy, who had been relaxed, suddenly stiffened. His posture changed. His expression flattened. His lips parted slightly as if struggling to comprehend. Gene took a seat at the stand. He didn't glance at Diddy. He didn't need to. "I've kept silent for too long," he said, "but I can't do it anymore. I have to tell the truth." The judge allowed him to proceed. The entire courtroom seemed to lean in as Deal began to recount what he called a pattern of disturbing behavior. Diddy's legal team immediately objected, reminding the court that Gene had signed strict confidentiality agreements. But the prosecution pushed back, hard. NDAs don't shield illegal conduct, they argued. And Deal wasn't just speculating, he had records. After a tense sidebar, the judge nodded. "He may continue. If you are new to the channel, make sure to like and subscribe for more breaking coverage of high-profile cases like this one." Deal leaned into the microphone. "Everything I'm about to reveal," he said, "I either saw directly or documented at the time. I wasn't a part of the media. I was a witness." This time, Diddy's lawyer stood again. "Your Honor, he signed a series of non-disclosures, including updates in 2012 and 2015. He is contractually barred." But Deal calmly responded, "Contracts don't protect crime. I was there. I saw people hurt, and I couldn't stay silent." The judge ruled in favor of the prosecution again. The testimony was allowed to go forward. Gene Deal then recounted how he got the job. It started with a high-end security firm. The pitch? Great pay, high-profile client, steady work. He was told it was the opportunity of a lifetime. But once he entered the house, things felt off. Too quiet, too secretive, too many cameras pointing inward, not outward. The outgoing security chief gave him a cryptic warning: "Keep your head down, and don't ask questions." It didn't take long for Diddy to approach him directly. "You don't just protect me," Diddy reportedly told him. "You protect the empire." That's when the rules changed. Confidentiality over security, control over safety. And Deal, though unsettled, stayed on. The paycheck was too good, but he started keeping notes, secret ones. "I didn't plan to go public," Deal said, "but I needed protection, just in case something happened." He had signed NDAs multiple times, each one more restrictive than the last. By 2015, the contracts barred him from speaking about anything at all, even if laws were broken. But federal prosecutors reminded the court that such contracts are not enforceable when criminal activity is involved. Deal said what broke him was seeing that hotel video, Diddy and Cassie. The one where Diddy appears to attack her in the hallway. That wasn't shocking to me, he said. That was familiar. The prosecution then presented the first piece of corroboration, a 2008 security log. Deal's signature at the bottom, 3:15 a.m. Guest attempted to leave. Intercepted near side exit. Held in East Wing, 4:20 a.m. Guest calmed. Rejoined others after boss's personal intervention. Intercepted, Deal clarified, meant stopped physically. Boss's intervention usually meant intimidation. More logs followed, patterns of behavior spanning years. Deal's handwritten notes documented multiple similar events. By the end of the first year, he realized we weren't there to protect. We were there to silence. He described a systematic operation. Party scouts, female guests flown in under pretense, drinks laced with unknown substances, in strict orders. No phones, no photos, no exits. And then the photos. Grainy images of unconscious guests. Doorways being blocked. Security staff ushering people into private wings of the house. One 2012 image showed a woman being carried, limp and unresponsive. These weren't accidents, Deal said. These were patterns. He went on to explain that there was a full hierarchy. Recruiters to find women, handlers to keep them in line, cleaners to sanitize scenes, and fixers, who followed up with money or threats if someone got out of line. We were managing optics, not safety. Then came the most explosive piece of evidence, a 2015 recording. In the clip, Diddy could be heard yelling at a crying woman, "You don't walk out on me, ever. You know what happens when people test me? They disappear." He turned to someone off camera and said, "Take her phone. Remind her who she's dealing with." Gene Deal, his voice tight, said, "That moment changed everything. I knew this wasn't about fame. It was about control. So why speak now? Why come forward after all this time?" "Because I enabled it," he admitted. "I didn't hit anyone. I didn't drug anyone. But I made sure no one saw. And that makes me part of it." He recalled getting a mysterious call in 2011 after voicing concern about an incident. They said, "The boss hears everything. Remember the contract and remember your family." Soon after, a package arrived at his house. Inside was a flash drive. It showed Deal preventing a woman from leaving. In the background, Diddy's voice, "Now you've got skin in the game too." "That's when I knew," Deal said. "This wasn't employment. This was entrapment." From that moment on, he began building a dossier. Logs, photos, copies of NDAs, backup drives. And eventually, he turned it all over to the feds. He ended his testimony with this: "People will say I should have come forward sooner. Maybe they're right, but I'm here now, and I won't lie for him anymore." He looked directly at Diddy. "You built an empire on fear, and now you're afraid." The courtroom sat in stunned silence. This wasn't just a trial anymore. This was the unraveling of a legacy. Messages from Diddy instructed Deal to manage situations through email, discussing cleanups at different properties and photos of what Deal described as aftermath scenes, trashed rooms and abandoned women's clothing. In one 2016 message, Diddy texted Deal, "Need total sweep of Miami house, every device, every room. If anything's recorded, find it and destroy it. No exceptions." Deal explained how the operation grew over time. It started with gatherings at Diddy's homes, but soon expanded to hotel suites, rented mansions, even private yachts. Wherever Diddy traveled, the same system followed. Phones collected, exits guarded, drugs available, and a team on standby to handle issues. The prosecutor asked about specific encounters involving other celebrities or industry figures who had either participated or observed these events. Deal listed several major names. Some were involved, others left once they realized what was going on. "Not everyone stayed," Deal said. "Some walked out immediately, but most kept quiet, either out of fear of retaliation or losing work." Diddy would often remind people, "I make stars, and I end careers." Deal described how he used a calculated mix of favors, threats, and incentives to ensure people's silence. Bonuses were handed out for cleaning up scandals. People were invited on luxury vacations, given access to power, and then Diddy would casually reference someone he had destroyed. The message was simple: stay loyal or disappear, Deal stated. Recordings and documentation revealed discussions that supported the allegations. Conversations about paying off witnesses, destroying surveillance footage, and sinking stories to protect Diddy's image. Several jurors looked disturbed, taking detailed notes. Diddy, who had been tense, now stared blankly at his former head of security. Deal ended this portion of his testimony by reflecting on his own guilt. I enabled this. Every time I stopped someone from leaving, every time I ignored a scream, I was part of it. I can't undo that. But I can speak now. Maybe it helps someone find peace. That's when the threats began. Deal spoke of late-night calls, unfamiliar cars parked near his home, and people asking questions about his kids at school. I didn't need a warning. I understood. This was Diddy's way of telling me, keep quiet or your family pays the price. So Deal stayed. He kept working, but he also started documenting. He smiled through meetings, brushed off his wife's concerns, and focused on protecting his family. But each time a new lawsuit surfaced, Cassie, the male producer, others, he asked himself, they're risking everything to speak. Why am I still silent? Glancing around the courtroom, Deal said, Diddy didn't just hurt people directly, he corrupted everyone around him. He pulled us into it. He described the pay system, decent base pay, but the real money came from special bonuses tied to discretion. If he quit, he'd lose everything. If he talked, his own role could be used against him. This was a routine, Deal said. It wasn't just Diddy threatening people. He had layers of protection, lawyers with NDAs, accountants with hush money, security with hidden cameras. Everyone had dirt on everyone. That's how he kept control. The prosecutor brought up a 2018 incident that nearly made Deal quit. A young woman was so drugged she stopped breathing. Instead of a hospital, a private doctor was called. She was revived, given $25,000 in cash and an NDA, and sent home. Deal confronted Diddy. He said he couldn't do it anymore. Diddy pulled up his financials, his mortgage, his kids' college savings, even personal photos, and said, this is what you're walking away from. Sure you want that? The court then heard a 2019 recording. You know too much to ever leave this family, John. You're either in or you're a problem. No middle ground, and you don't want to be my problem. When whispers of investigations began, things got more discreet. Remote locations, tighter screening, compartmentalized teams. But the behavior continued. When Cassie sued, Deal said they all knew it was true. We'd all seen it, but the directive was clear. Deny, discredit, silence. Asked what finally pushed him to cooperate with the feds, Deal lowered his voice. I kept quiet for 15 years. Told myself I was protecting my family. But then I saw a hotel video, Diddy hitting Cassie, and I recognized it. Then a former team member called. They're trying to buy the footage. They're leaning on cops. It might disappear. That's when I knew. I had to speak. He stayed up all night, going through photos, logs, files, years of documentation. I realized I was the only one who kept records. The breaking point wasn't fear, it was shame. If I stayed silent, more people would suffer. One day my kids will learn about this. I want them to know I did the right thing, at least once. He reached out to the FBI. I've got 15 years of evidence. I'll cooperate fully. Looking at the jury, I wasn't just a bystander. I was an accomplice. I saw it all, and so did he. He nodded toward Diddy. The judge allowed Deal to address Diddy directly. He stood, stepped forward, and said, you built this empire on intimidation. You called it loyalty. You called it brotherhood. But what you created was a network of fear and silence. Diddy didn't move. Deal continued. I witnessed what you did to those women. I saw what happened to anyone who stood up to you. I heard the things you said when no one was supposed to hear. You thrived off control. Then Deal produced his original 2005 job contract, creased and worn. This was the day I gave away my conscience. I kept it all these years to remind myself what happens when good people do nothing. To the jury, he said, this isn't just about celebrities. It's about power being used to exploit the vulnerable. If we don't take a stand now, it'll happen again. Then turning back to Diddy, you once said loyalty was the only currency that mattered, but the truth matters more. As Deal stepped away, Diddy suddenly stood. The courtroom tensed. He shouted, You stabbed me in the back after everything I gave you. Deal turned around. No, Sean. You stabbed yourself the moment you thought power made you untouchable. Chaos erupted. The judge called for order. Diddy was restrained as he continued shouting, his carefully built image collapsing before everyone. Outside, the press swarmed. When Deal exited, he simply raised a hand and said, I've said everything I needed to say. This isn't about me. It's about justice for the victims. Asked if he feared retaliation, Deal answered, I've lived in fear for 15 years. Today, I don't. He didn't look proud. He looked relieved, like someone finally unburdened. Inside, the courtroom was shaken. Even the judge seemed visibly moved. Jurors were emotional. Diddy reportedly had to be sedated after continuing his meltdown off the record. Deal didn't stick around. He left with federal protection, quietly. The security industry panicked. Firms called emergency meetings. PR teams rushed statements. Lawyers reviewed every NDA in circulation. Online, users connected dots in old photos. Deal always just behind Diddy. Public outrage spread, not just at Diddy, but at the system that enabled him. Diddy's lawyers requested a mistrial, citing NDA violations. The judge denied it, stating that criminal acts cannot be protected by NDAs. Legal experts called Deal's testimony the turning point. He wasn't just a witness, he was part of the machine. And he brought receipts, one analyst said. He gave prosecutors the structure of the entire operation. When court resumed, Diddy appeared deflated. Gone was the confidence. Gone were the designer suits. Only his mother remained by his side. Other staff members testified, confirming Deal's claims. The defense tried to argue Deal was after money, but the jury had heard enough. Outside, Deal made one final comment. This isn't a win for me. It's a step toward healing for the people who suffered. I should have come forward sooner, but I hope this proves no one is above accountability. The case ignited a wave of reforms, new rules in the industry, stronger whistleblower protections, legislation restricting NDAs in abuse cases. Victim hotlines saw record activity, but perhaps the most important outcome, the illusion of invincibility cracked. A system of fear that thrived for years, undone when one man decided to stop being silent. Thanks for watching. If you reach this point in the video, consider to like and subscribe to the channel.